What's up, everybody? This is Moose and Brian here from OccupyFantasy.com, at OccupyFantasy on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Here for the $1 Million Mission, where we break down Brian's lineups, his 150 max lineups, what he did right, what he did wrong. Let's look at what other pros did, other winners did, and basically take a whole kind of lineup rewind, almost weekly rewind. I'm your host, Moose, at CFB_Moose is where you can find me, co-founder and data guru here at OccupyFantasy.com. Again, I'm here with Brian at BrianJesterFF on Twitter. He's the co-founder and CEO of Occupy Fantasy and professional DFS player. What's up, Brian?
I'm the Moose. Happy Tuesday to you, sir.
Definitely. I got my Parks and Recreation mug here. Pawnee, Indiana. I've seen maybe like 6 episodes.
Dude, you gotta binge the whole show. That's one of the best shows of all time.
Yeah, before we get too off topic, literally the only shows I've watched is when I think you and I were in Boston and we watched like 6 episodes back to back, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that, but yeah, it's a great show. Why do you even have that cup?
My girlfriend's grandmother bought it. She's not born in America. She thought Pawnee, Indiana was like a real place. It was like, oh, this looks cool, and bought it for my significant other. So
It's actually pretty sick though.
Yeah, it is. Holds a lot of coffee. All right, back to what we're supposed to be doing here, the Week 6 edition lineup analysis for Brian. Let's just jump right into it, Brian. It was not a fun week last week.
No.
Yeah, pretty much a floor week. So if we take a look at how you did on FanDuel last week, $2,700 in entries, $790 in winnings for a minus 71% ROI. It's not very good.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before, right? This is basically worst case scenario outside of like me forgetting to submit lineups.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then same thing pretty much happened on DraftKings. 5,100 in entries, 1,744 in winnings for minus 66%.
Super fun. So again, these entries are GPP only, right? So it's the $1 million tournaments on both sites. It is the $9 equivalent, the rush on FanDuel and the slant on DraftKings, and then whatever $4 or $5 smaller, more high risk tournament there is. So ends up being 3 tournaments, 150 lineups each site. Yeah, pretty poor performance overall.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of your exposures, what your thought process was for the week, see if we can improve. If we take a look at how you've done year to date so far on both sites, you're still up 40,000, a little over 40,000 entries, a little over 46,000 in winnings for a 16% ROI, which is still great. Not what we're used to here on the $1 Million Mission, but still profit.
I'll say thank God for week 3, week 3, right? Because we'd be sitting in that. I mean, yeah, it's definitely tough, and we'll get into it here in a second, talking about losing streaks. Because I think that's the number one topic we should talk about here. But let's go through all the intros and stuff first, and then we'll get into the psychology and the numbers behind losing.
Yeah. And again, this is the $1 Million Mission. We are in the DraftKings Survivor Pool for $1 million to first. That's not the wrong image. That's also the wrong image. Anyway, we had Pittsburgh last week. 59% of the people are left. I swear to God, Brian, can we please pick a team that doesn't have to rely on like an overtime field goal? I don't have to stay up till 1 a.m. like pulling my hair out. Love just
every week, man. Every week it's an overtime 3-point victory. And then while the chalk team just wins by 4 touchdowns, right?
I know. If we somehow pull this off, I'm gonna call a friend of mine over at ESPN to do an interview, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, dude, I lost. I gained 150 years every week, just had to sweat it out. So, yeah, so that's that. And then in the pick'em, we moved up about 50, 60 spots. We went 3-2 last week. Overall, Brian, I thought we had a good process. We're kind of refining our process. It was funny because we were talking the night before, that Saturday night, and both of us were like, "This is really hard." We both agreed, let's skip this week. And then, because you have to use one skip, and it's the best out of 17 weeks. And we woke up the next morning, and it's just like, I guess the stars aligned, some things popped out. And then we all pretty much got on the same 5 teams. So we get to keep our skip, which, if my math is correct, it's good that we kept our skip.
Yes,
Um,
especially with the winning week, definitely good that we kept our skip, and I think that just goes to show the value in sleeping on something or taking a break or walking away from it and coming back and look at it. Your brain does weird things when you're not thinking about the thing you're supposed to be thinking about, and so subconscious was working for both of us, and we came back with a fresh mind, fresh outlook, and got a winning week in the books.
yeah, as Ed says, the Colts got me through easily. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. All right. Yeah. So that's pretty much all the stuff that we have. Again, we're moving up in the pick'em. Can't hate on that any at all. Brian, I know you wanted to talk about losing, so I'll throw the $1 Million Mission logo up while you talk about some losing streaks, valleys, kind of how you deal with it.
Yeah, let's discuss. And if you guys have questions or comments in the chat about the week, go ahead. I'm gonna do a little soliloquy here about losing streaks, and mostly feel free to interrupt and ask questions or whatever. But yeah, so this may sound crazy, right? Because just in week 3, which is 3 weeks ago, I hit spike week, right? And just 2 weeks into the NFL, or 3 weeks into the NFL season, things were looking up, and I'm still up for the season, right? Plus 16%. However, that's just GPPs. That's not including Showdown. It's not including satellites, which I'm really trying to qualify for the live finals, and that's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the dead heat of Valley season. Which, if you've heard this show before, if you watched our previous episodes, if you watched our year preview before week 1, you watched a couple of the interviews I've done, I've talked about this cycle like all the time, where it's continuously you have a really big score, or at least for me, have a really big score, you don't hit for a little bit and you blame variance, and then you get really upset because you're not hitting and you're like, what the fuck is going on, why am I not hitting? And then it gets to the point, which is where we are now in the Valley season, that it feels like you're actually never going to win again. You question why you even do this. You think, God, like, please, am I ever going to win? You start to think, am I using too much of my bankroll now? Like, all these thoughts creep into your mind, right? And what you guys see on here every Tuesday is just the main slate GPPs. We're not even including showdowns, which I'm maxing 3 times per week. We're not including MMA, which has had some very rough stretch of luck lately. Golf been few and far between. League of Legends here and there, right? But like, no real winning slate since probably week 3 in all these sports. So that makes it really tough. And Moose, I don't know if you have any comments. I have a couple more things I want to talk about. I don't know if you have any comments about that in particular.
Yeah, I had to dig up the archive. Thankfully, Twitter search is actually very powerful. But there's something I do want to show. Bring this out. We show this probably once a year. There's a tweet from you from MLB back in 2019. I know it's 2 years ago or so. But if you look at the chart here, will that show? I should probably hide the image. Basically, you went 31 out of 35 losing days before back-to-back GPP wins. And you went from almost plus 100% ROI down to like minus 95. And then back-to-back GPP wins puts you up to almost 100% again.
The life of a GPP player, the life of a professional. Again, I'm literally signing up for this, right? I'm just saying, when if you put the cursor, Moose, right at that valley at the very end, that's kind of where we are right now, and it doesn't feel great, and you never feels like that next peak is coming, but it always is, right? We know that, and it's kind of funny because we were talking about this a couple weeks ago in here, where I listened to other professionals in all sorts of areas. I mentioned how I was watching a bunch of like interviews with actors and actresses about their process. It's funny, I was watching an interview, or it was like a 24 hours in the life of type video, like just as early as last week, with the rapper Jack Harlow. Oh, wow. And it was talking just, he was going through his day-to-day and his process, and at the very end he was talking about something that just resonated so much. He was saying that, despite all the success he's had, right, like every time he goes in the studio he feels this anxiety and this and he feels this pressure. He's like, I feel like I can't make a hit ever again, right? Like every single time I come in here, I feel like I don't feel like I have it. I can't. The next hit is never coming. I know I've had all these hits in the past, but like, it's so much pressure to put out this next hit, and the only way I get out of it is I need someone to tell me like, yo, Jack, you're a beast. Like, look at all this stuff you've done. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna come, right? Just sit down and write or sit down and do it, follow your process. And to me, I was like, damn, that feels so crazy. I'm not a fucking rapper like Jack Harlow, right? Or I don't have like a creative process like an artist or a writer or
Mm.
whatever. But it's the same thing, right? Like sometimes you just need that reminder, and that graph is a great reminder, Moose. So thank you for that. That you are good at this. You look at your results, you look at your wins, you can do this, and it gets tough when you're not reminded that too frequently, because as humans we focus on the losses more than the wins. Most, you go to a bar, right? How many good beat poker stories do you hear? You only hear bad beat poker stories, right?
Yeah, I trust me. We could have a 3-hour show, talk about bad beats, and cover one day of bad beats I've heard.
Right.
You hear every single bad beat, no word, every single time. And even then, real quick, I do also want to say, like, I also like you're a great player. You're absolutely fantastic. You crush what you
Thank
do.
you.
And like even sometimes like we just share like the most random shit videos. And like I shared that chess video with you. And I was talking about like again, not necessarily because I wanted you to learn chess, but I wanted you to see how other people think about things. And again, you were reading or watching about Jack Harlow or about actors, actresses. It gets you in the mindset of how are other people thinking, and can I use this thinking toward my process.
Yeah, dude. Never stop learning, never stop reading, never stop listening to other smart people, right? If like you said, that the chess video, that guy has a great process, he's a successful chess player. I'm watching videos about successful actors, top of the charts artists, successful philosopher, like literally anything. If someone's successful, you can learn from them, right? If I go to a party or an outing and I'm talking to someone like, oh, what do you do? And I realize they're top of the field, pick their brain. Like, how'd you get there? What do you do, right? So, all this is a long way of saying that losing sucks. Sometimes you have to take a step back from it and understand, that is part of the process, especially in something as crazy as we do as DFS. And shout out to Tugs in the chat. It says he feels awful but can't chase. Stay steady with your head up. Longtime Occupy follower and friend of the show who knows all about the ups and downs of it. So appreciate those words.
Definitely. When you were saying, long story short, I thought you were going to say you're going to DM Jack Harlow for his game stacks of the week. I'm not going to lie.
Yo, Jack. Take a step back from your world tour and just let me know what you think about this week's games.
Definitely. I love to see all the enthusiasm in the chat. Love it to hear from everyone. Let's jump through what people have to say. From the very top, Pick says, anyone know about the 75K first basket bonus on FanDuel? I don't, honestly.
From what I understand, if you're still, I know this is at the top of the show, LA shot, but the first scorer of the game in that big GPP, if you have that person in your lineup, you split $75,000. I don't even know who it was tonight. I assume it was a starter who was like 75% owned. So you'll get like 87 cents per split per person. So
definitely. Ed says Isaiah McKenzie, what could have been, finished 7,000s in the millie with him at 2% owned. That sucks. But then he also says, let's talk about the difference between MME and single entry. In $50 single entry, I played Chief stacks with a run back, Andrews at tight end, Colts D, and 2 underperforming wide receivers. Aguilar, Edwards let me down, but was that too risky for single entry?
No, because the fact of the matter is most people, because they have a single entry, play it safer than they should. Mm-hmm. So you should be playing it like a regular GPP. And I mean, I don't see anything risky about that at all, except for the fact that Aguilar and Edwards are just actually terrible players, right? But they were on the underperforming list. Edwards scored 16 points, right? He had a 100-yard game. He was fine. Aguilar dropped a 75-yard touchdown. Like, that's why he's on the list, I guess. But stacking, playing those guys, like that's a perfect lineup for me. And I think a lot of people fall into that track of single entry. I only have one lineup. I can't get 2 out of the box. But if you're playing a single entry moose with thousands of players, right? Like, you have to get risky to win it.
Exactly, yeah. And not just like a Chief stack. Like, I know we talk about ownership and game stacks, how low it is. So I don't even think that's risky. Like, you're playing a really good team and stacking them. So I love that. I love that the way you're doing that, Ed.
Yep.
Cochran says, 40 plus publishers turning to Harry Potter. Keep working. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Me and J.K. Rowling, one and the same.
Definitely. Ed also says, underperforming wide receiver McLaurin, Aguilar, Edwards. For MME, I think that's fine, but I ended 10 spots out of min cash. So what's your recommendation? Yeah, we talked about that, Ed.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, and this week was especially thin at underperforming wide receivers. Like, maybe you go with more top of the model guys. But again, McLaurin was a run back in that game stack, and those other 2 guys were cheap, high upside options. I think it was a fine lineup. In fact, yeah. I just bubbled the $2,000 GPP with a very similar lineup. If it makes you feel any better, and it probably doesn't.
No. We almost got the underperforming tight end rushing touchdown, the even more rare way.
That'd have been so sick if he'd have got that.
Definitely. S, appreciate it. I stick with you because it's boomer bust. Most of the GPP players aren't in this for the min cash. We aren't going anywhere. Appreciate that,
Ed. The casual player will see a loss and me talking about losses and wonder why the hell they're listening to our advice. Glad you see through it and see the higher level picture.
Definitely. As DFS points out, only as good as your next bet. The motto in betting. Even Neil, never knew too high, never too low. Keep it steady. DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Really good question here.
I guess DeAndre Jordan scored the forced basket. Is that what he's saying, or is that a quote by DeAndre?
I was gonna say, if DeAndre Jordan says you're only as good as your next bet, then I need to roster him every time. Matt actually has a really good question here, Brian. It says, during the week, are you consuming other content from other good players, or do you block the rest out?
No, actually, I don't consume a single piece of content. The only thing I'll read is, as I've talked about before, is golf. I'll read what handicappers are doing to try to get qualitative data into my system. But as far as like NFL, I don't even know what's out there, to be honest. I'm sure there's other great content out there. We don't look at other content until after the season's over to see what our competitors are doing, just from like a business standpoint, right? In season, I don't have time to read anybody's anything outside of what Chris writes in the plug, outside of what we're producing. Just don't have time. Plus, I think that siloed approach, at least for me, is better off because you don't fall into groupthink. You don't try to do what other people are doing. However, having high level conversations, not even about the slate, but it's about DFS. Like I'll talk with you, I'll talk with Chris, Ken, like all of our staff, Niramata, Jack, right? Just about high level DFS stuff and strategy. And that's fine, I think. And I try to do that as often as I can. But like reading other people's content, it's just, as a content creator ourselves, this is not something that we could do. Plus, I don't want our stuff to be influenced by it. But as a DFS player, if you're trying to create your own differentiated lineups anyways, I think it could be negative. As a content consumer, for those of you watching this, I think that's definitely fine to do, right? Like you want to get as many smart opinions as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. And just to piggyback off that, Jake, our MMA writer, I have a bunch of talks with him. He doesn't read a single piece of anything except his own thing. I'm kind of the same way with NFL, because sometimes I'll talk to you Sunday morning after lock, and you'll say, "What games to actually pick?" I'll say X, Y, and Z, and you're like, "How did you even come up with those?" And so so like Jake and I have some really good conversations. Again, like you said, very high level, which is great. We don't really consume too much.
Jake's a great example of siloing himself, right? He'll come out on, he'll just lock himself into his cave Monday through Friday, and then we'll talk, like we'll do our live stream Friday night or whatever, and I'll say, oh, I think so and so is gonna be popular. He's like, wait, really? I haven't looked at anything but the tape for 5 straight days, and that's admirable. And so I think that as a content creator, it's one of the best qualities you could have, probably.
And then he goes out and spits 90% accurate ownerships. Definitely.
Exactly. That's impressive.
Definitely. Ed says, I love your joint showdown content and never let Chris go. His NFL breakdowns are spot on. Appreciate that, Ed.
So when Chris asked for his pay raise, we'll have to increase the membership prices. Just know that, Ed, you brought this upon yourself. So thank you. But we appreciate those kind of words. I'm sure Chris does too.
Definitely. We just don't have the Ed membership where Ed just covers everyone's fees.
Ed, you got that? Ed's got to win a couple 333s for him to pay off the Chris membership fee.
I know, right? So let's hop over to Fantasy Labs contest dashboard real quick. A really great free resource, fantasylabs.com. Go to NFL contest dashboard. You can view past contests, see what pros did, see what other people did, and a whole bunch of other great stuff. So I'm here in the $20 milli. I have you sorted by leverage, Brian, and this was a weird week. We talked about it all week last week. This was a weird week for running backs. So it doesn't surprise me to see Darrell Williams, Khalil Herbert, Kareem Hunt, the top of your leverage spots across all positions.
Yeah, I mean, again, we mentioned it. We talked about it on the Saturday stream, how the mid-range running back that we've been kind of targeting all season was pushed down to this value running back range just because of the midweek injuries and whatnot. And to be fair, I wish there was only one of them. Both Darrell Williams and Khalil Herbert did pretty well for their salaries. Kareem Hunt, game got out of control. He got hurt. I mean, that kind of sucked. But we talk about lock buttoning and playing a value running back when he's egregiously priced in all of your lineups. But the reason we do that is because there are no other viable plays in their price range that have the same floor and ceiling combination. That's why we do that, right? The Jalen Samuels 100K week from 2 years ago, great example. No one was remotely close to his floor, ceiling, and his salary range when he was thrust into the starting role midweek on FanDuel. But this week, Darrell Williams, Khalil Herbert, all these guys are kind of the same price. I mean, and we're not even mentioning a couple of the other guys that were just a little bit higher priced as well. And you have the Kareem Hunt range. Like all of them were great plays. So to me, just get exposure to all of them. Unfortunately, couldn't lock button them. And that's why you didn't see me really go over the field on any one of those guys.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a tough thing. Again, what do you think, Brian? If there's that many, I know you said we're lock buttoning because there's not many people around it in that situation, but do you like your approach and how you took it? I don't think we'll ever see a week like this again, so I don't know if we absolutely should be researching and keeping it in the back of our mind in case it does happen again. But maybe I'm asking the wrong question there.
I don't know. Well, the same thing we kind of looked at before. Like, I wonder what other pros did, and we can look at that here in a second. Yeah. I thought it was great. To be fair, I thought Dalvin Cook was the best play on the board, just as far as like ownership goes. Mm-hmm. We talked about it on Saturday. High ankle sprain's gone. He was only 5%, and no one was going to play him because of his price, because of his recent performance, because of all the value running backs, because of some of the expensive receivers. So I was 4 times leveraged on him, and he had a great game. So the running backs did okay, right? I was fine with it. The game stacks just didn't really pan out.
Yeah.
There was only like really one 3x1 stack that hit, and even that wasn't that great.
Yeah. Anytime you see, like, I'm just looking here at what looks like the leaderboard. Anytime you see a bunch of people that have less than 10 entries at the top of the leaderboard, then game stacks are pop off.
Absolute nightmare scenario to see that from a 150 Masters perspective.
Yeah. So, looking here, it looks like Ricky D was looks like he was the highest placed person. That had 150 lineups.
He's great, by the way. Great NFL player, great 150 maxer.
Yeah, and it looks like he had super leverage on the Vikings. So that game stack went off, and that probably shot him up the leaderboard.
Yeah, he had 22% to Sam Darnold. And if you see me on the screen, I'm like leaning in to read this. 50% Cousins. So literally like 65 to 70% of all of his lineups in the Millie were Carolina, Minnesota game stacks. Well done getting that game to overtime, Ricky D.
Yeah, and max exposure of Kareem Hunt, 83%.
So he went that route, and I think that's probably a fine route, right? I don't hate it, right? That's a good route. Yeah. And here's the show, Moose, right? We talk about if you go over on a value running back, even if they don't hit. Kareem Hunt scored, I think, 10 or 12 points, right? Yeah. He had 83% of lines with Kareem Hunt. He's still top 15 the milli out of 200-some thousand entries, right? You don't have to get a ceiling performance out of the value running back to score high in a GPP.
Yep, you pretty much hit that on the spot. Let's look at. I know we haven't really taken a look at some of the other people. If there's someone in the chat, if there's someone you want us to look up lineups for, we can. Brian, anyone you want to look up exposures for?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up the Roto Grinders leaderboard. We'll look straight down the rankings to see what they did, because I think that's valuable to do. It's kind of how we, figured out a lot of our initial strategies. So if I can figure out how to get to the goddamn rankings, on Roto Grinders, let me see here, rankings. Here we go.
Well, Awesome is gonna be on there.
Yeah. So see what he did. Can't play kickers in classic, so I'm not sure what he did.
I never know how to actually spell his name.
Yeah, it's Awesemo.
Yeah. So his leverage players, a little bit. I didn't really no game stacks toward the top of all leverages. Just spitting out some names: Jacoby Myers, Khalil Herbert, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Mac Jones, Kareem Hunt. So yeah, he went high on Kareem Hunt as well.
Kareem Hunt, Khalil Herbert, the obvious values he went high on. Great, of course. What about our boy, the Whistles? We know he's a fantastic NFL player. It's incredibly sharp. Let's see what he did. I've never studied his 150 strategy in NFL, so I'd be curious to see what he did.
Yeah. So, sorting by leverage, Kareem Hunt, Jacoby Myers, Khalil Herbert, Tyler Boyd, DJ Moore. Looks like he had Kareem Hunt, Khalil Herbert, value running backs, allowed exposure.
Go figure, right? Did he have Darrell Williams? Shuba Hubbard's another one, by the way, that fit the mold.
I don't see a lot of exposure for that. Let me sort by running backs. Okay. Shuba was his third most exposed running back, then Darrell Henderson.
Interesting. But yeah, he went heavy on Hunt and Herbert, which is, again, part of the process we preach.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let's check out We know Papa Gates and Chipotle are fantastic NFL players. Let's see what they did.
Okay. Do we know our boy that plays like 600 different players in his player pool?
Laz gets fit. Let's definitely see what he did.
Yeah.
So Papa
Bet
Gates.
says seen a 3-0 stacks and double tight end win the millie. Basically stuff outside of our strategies you guys preach. How do you guys process those winning lineups, luck, and basically shrug it off?
Yeah, we process those by posting the winning lineup in our staff chat and just talking about how those guys are now richer than we are, and just basically bitching about it for like, I don't know, a couple hours, and then we move on to the next week. So, all you can do is laugh about it when those type of lineups win. Just think, right? Like, if you're a charitable person, these two lineups helped 2 random people become millionaires. Congrats to them, right? We're never gonna win when that happens. The reason we play our strategies, right? The 3-1 stacks, heavy on running backs, underperforming wide receivers, yada, yada, all the stuff we preach, right? We know that there's major leverage in doing that over the course of a season, over the course of our entire DFS careers. Trying to pinpoint these 3-0 stacks, these double tight ends, one-off type lineups, that's literally gambling and trying to beat 350,000 different entries. We're able to a term now is growth hacking, right? For businesses, we're able to growth hack GPP wins by just playing this strategy over and over. And on the 4 to 8 weeks a year, when game stacks are near the top and you have a chance to win, that's how you do it. So we know that this comes with the territory that these crazy ass lineups are going to win from time to time. Probably, honestly, more often than 3-1 game stacks. But the number of those types of lineups being played greatly outnumber the type of lineups we love playing, which is why we're going to continue to sign up for playing GPPs in the NFL, because we know there's a massive edge over the long term.
He pretty much hit that on the spot. So for Papa Gates, I like him. He did a lot of leverage on Bengals, so I can't hate that. Shuba Hubbard was his most leveraged running back, followed by Khalil Herbert. Had only 4%
50%.
of Kareem Hunt.
So he went way under, which I think is his brother probably had a lot of Kareem Hunt. Let's see what Chipotle Addict did.
And for the record, Chipotle is very overrated.
Not the
player, not the player, like the actual restaurant.
It's funny you say that, right? We had Chipotle for dinner tonight, and my fiance makes fun of me for like how plain my Chipotle bowls are, and she was like, "Does Moose like Chipotle?" And I was like, "I'm pretty sure Moose hates Chipotle." And just because it's Moose, and he would definitely hate Chipotle. So I'm glad you verified that without even me asking you that question. Thank you.
Give me Taco Bell over Chipotle any day. Clip that. Period.
Jesus, dude. Okay.
So Chipotle Addict actually had 4% of Cream Hunt as well.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Also a bunch of Bengal sacks as well, or a bunch of Bengal levers as well.
Do with that information what you may. Yep. But they also went heavy on Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert was I think the best pure value of the group, and it's nice to see every single top DFS player go heavy on him. One last player, Moose. I don't know if he played DraftKings. He might have. Go Sixers Go. He won like 900K on FanDuel, so I assume he played DraftKings as well.
I looked up Laz Gets Fits, had 119 players in his player pool.
This guy is the greatest. So for those who don't know who Laz Gets Fit is, we discovered this maniac, this wizard last year or the year before, right? Yeah, no, incredible wizard who he's won a milli, right?
Mm-hmm. I think
won a milli.
Yeah, I think he's gotten 1 or 2.
And this guy just literally plays every player on the NFL slate. I don't know how he does it, what happens, but he uses look at this. He literally uses every single quarterback, like 1%.
Yeah, like 17 quarterbacks he has played here.
And you may think this guy's the dumbest person of all time, but he's literally won 1 million, if not 2, in multiple big contests as a result. And he has the wildest player pool. And this goes back to our strategy guide, which says that study what other top players do what works best for you and your projections and your process. I don't know if anyone can purely replicate what Laz Gets Fit does, but it's just mind-boggling to see him have these player pools every single week, and it's not a meme. He literally does it every week, and he's been successful doing it. I don't know how.
Now, didn't we come to the conclusion, or again, we don't know exactly what he's doing, but I think he's trying to just match ownership on all the players, right?
I think so. Go to receiver. Like, what does his receiver player pool look like? If he has a bunch of Devontae Adams and
so Cooks, McLaurin, Shepard, Cup. I don't see any Devontae Adams actually.
Just as we thought as we figured him out.
Yeah, Devontae Adams, 12% compared to 15%.
Yeah. Okay, so he tried to match. What a genius. And Matt in the chat says, do you think as ownership gets more and more efficient, which is, I think we're at the point now where it's incredibly efficient, would that mean you want to do what Laz does? I don't know. I've never fully wrapped my mind around this Galaxy Brain strategy. Sure, if you had like 15,000 lineups, I think so. But like, there's correlation in NFL. We know that. I don't know how its correlation looks. We haven't studied it that deep. We've just been more mesmerized by the surface level player pool analysis. I don't know. I think if someone out there is watching this and has the time to dive into the mystery of Laz Gets Fit and why he does it, we may uncover something, right? Maybe the strategy guide next year will have the Laz Gets Fit section. But I think, Matt, what you're saying definitely holds true, and it's probably what he's picked up on. It's something interesting to think about.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like that that GoldenEye speedrun video I sent you, where like they use the computer to figure out some crazy strategy where you stand on the guard. Like sometimes like you have to just like, sometimes people are just really freaking good at something and find out the craziest stuff that works. So shout out Laz.
Laz gets fit. Sorry, Laz Gets Fit. Playing every player in player pool is the equivalent of standing on the guard's head in GoldenEye in DFS.
Clip that too. Yeah, definitely a lot of clips this stream. So Go Sixers Go only had 3 lineups.
Oh,
and
okay.
He was, 33% everybody. Just played unique
one last player, Oxenduck, Oxenduck. Great player. Won the 444 milli a couple weeks ago. Great showdown player as well. And he plays more optimally, I would say, like projections heavy, just studying his player pools. So I'm curious to see what he did.
All right, in terms of leverage, Indy defense, Kareem Hunt, Lamar Jackson, T. Higgins, Jacoby Myers, Mark Andrews, and then Khalil Herbert. So yeah, again, it just shows Khalil Herbert was a good play if every single pro we looked up was overexposed on him.
Yes, it was. And again, I don't think that was the problem with my results this week. It was all the game stacks sucked. Yeah. So if you guys needed the 90th confirmation of going over on high volume popular running backs, here's exhibit 100 or 91 or whatever.
Definitely. We also like to look just really quick, just to look at the duplicates. 500 people duplicated this lineup with a Burrow Chase mini stack.
Jesus. That's more than usual, right?
Yeah, it's usually like 100 or so, which is kind of nuts. But hey, we'll take it. It's actually pretty good lineup.
Burrow, yep. Oh yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And if we take a look at the reports that they have here,
we hypothesized that this would be the highest flex usage of tight end all year, and it looks like we might be right.
Yeah, 22% of all lineups had a tight end compared to 19% of the top 1%. It's normally around like between 5 and 10, so 3 to 4 times leverage, or 3 to 4 times what it normally was.
Yep. So only 19% of top 1% finishers had double tight end, but 100% of millionaire winners had a tight end in their flex.
Yeah. Again, majority of people are using between $500, like leaving no more than $500 on. You shouldn't be doing any more than that. Brian, any last words, thoughts, anything else you want to take a look at before we get up out of here?
Let me just look at the winning lineup just so we can all process it and move on.
Bull Nasty. Shout out Bull Nasty for winning the $1 million.
So it's like the most incredible lineup I've ever seen, and not in a good or bad way, just pure incredible.
Yeah. So had the Baker, Donovan Peoples-Jones, mini stack, no run back. Had the Mixon, Joe Mixon at running back, JT. Shout out
double tight end with the late game tight end not even in the flex spot.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with like that right there is just the hardest flex I've ever seen.
Just dunk it on the entire field, right? Yeah. Obviously gets the CeeDee Lamb overtime touchdown to win the $1 million, which like how nuts would you go? I guess we've been there before. We know how nuts you go, right? But like you imagine, like, because for me it was like holding off for the million, right?
Yeah.
To actually get the score to win the million is pretty insane. So I don't know, man. It just I'll just say it's a ridiculously stupid lineup. Congrats to Bull Nasty. He's a millionaire now, right? It's gonna happen 17 weeks, 18 weeks out of the year. So congrats to him. We move on to week 7. I can't wait.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Chris says the old no run back 2-0 stack from a team that lost by 23. Yes.
Definitely. So, but overall, I thought this was actually one of our better $1,000,000 missions, Brian. We talked about it a lot, got really deep into some things. I really liked it. Let's hope week 7 is a more profitable week. Couldn't get much worse, to be honest. Just had to stick that knife in you one last time. You're welcome. But until next time, we'll be here Saturday. Also, don't forget to check out tomorrow. Chris will be posting the actual videos, not live streams. Positional breakdowns. Those are always a great listen, car ride to work, or just in your house, whatever. Whenever they're great, go listen to them. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Our live show will be back Saturday. We're going to try and get some more NHL and some NBA stuff going on since those seasons are popping off now. But until next time, Moose and Brian here from Occupy Fantasy. Have a good night.
Peace.